So you've read your first Scandinavian crime novel and you want more. Well, I've got you covered. I've received a few requests lately to share some of my favorite Scandinavian or Nordic noir novels and series, including some that may have inspired my debut novel, Where Ravens Roost. So let's talk about some of my personal favorite crime series. As for my credentials, I am a big reader of crime and thriller novels, particularly Scandinavian or Nordic noir novels. I even got my master's in Scandinavian literary studies, and I'm also an author of crime and thrillers, including 2 of which can be considered Scandinavian noir. If you're already a fan of Scandi crime novels, it'll be no surprise to you that one of my favorite go-to series to recommend is the Harry Hole books by Nesbø. These books are fantastic. They're set in Norway. There is quite a few of them now. These novels are very atmospheric. One of the big things about Scandinavian crime novels is that the setting, the location, the atmosphere is also kind of a character in and of itself, and you definitely see that in the Harry Hole novels. When it comes to most series of books in other genres, you technically have to read the books in order, but when it comes to crime novel series, you can kind of read them in any order that you want. Yes, technically you will miss out on tiny details in certain character arcs if you don't read them in order. However, for this series in particular, I actually have a preference when it comes to reading. And my preference is, if you are going to start this series for the very first time, you either start with The Snowman, which is technically book 7, or you start with The Redbreast, which is book 3. Either of these books is a good introduction to the series as a whole. There isn't too much from the previous books that you need to know about the main characters in order to enjoy these books. They do stand alone on their own. However, the first 2 books in the series, The Bat and Cockroaches, they aren't bad, but they aren't really a good introduction to what this series becomes. If you want to know what this series really feels like, start with one of these 2 books. But we can't talk about Scandi crime without talking about Ragnar Jónasson. This is the first book in the Hulda Hermannsdóttir series, the Hidden Iceland series. This is The Darkness, and it is absolutely fantastic. But one of the craziest things about this series is that you technically have 2 different ways of reading it. You can read them in the order of which they were published, starting with this book, or you can read them backwards. Without spoiling anything, the first book takes place during the character's final case, and as you read the books, we go back and forth in time. She gets younger and younger. There's a lot of discussion among readers about whether you should read them chronologically or whether you should read them in publication order. Personally, I think you should start with this one first. The ending just slams into you like a brick wall. Will Dean has become really popular in the last few years for his psychological and suspense thrillers, but before that he was writing the Tuva Moodyson series, which is a Scandi noir set in Sweden. This one is brilliant. This is the first one in the series. A great book to read if you are looking for a female protagonist and disability representation. Will did a lot of research into this character, into this region, into everything about this book series. They will keep you on the edge of your seat. Very fast-paced reads. Now, most Scandi crime novels are pretty dark to begin with, but if you're looking for something really dark, let me recommend I'm Traveling Alone by Samuel Björk and The Crow Girl by Erik Axelsund. Another fast-paced crime series is the Blix and Ramm series by Thomas Enger and Jørn Lier Horst. This is a really good series if you want 2 very interesting and kind of dichotomous protagonists. The protagonists in this book are a police officer and a celebrity blogger. This series is pretty cool because Horst and Enger are 2 big names in crime fiction on their own. Their individual books are fantastic, and it's just an exciting collaboration between the 2 of them. You can tell by reading these books that these 2 authors must have had a lot of fun working together. If you want something a little less heavy on the actual crime police procedural aspects, but still want that as part of the story, I would recommend Camilla Läckberg or Sara Blaedel. Their books are also really good. Again, fast-paced reads and very, very atmospheric, both of them. And of course, we can't talk about Scandi Noir without bringing up Stieg Larsson, the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. These books have just so much in them. This world is so detailed, so realistic, very graphic, very gruesome. This one is dark. This entire series is dark, but it has one of the most interesting protagonists you're gonna find in thrillers, like ever. Another author to look out for is Yrsa Sigurdardóttir. She is an Icelandic author. She has a huge back catalog of books. Some of them have a supernatural, almost horror-ish vibe to them. So if that's something that's on your radar, you should definitely check out some of her books. You can find the synopsis and figure out whether it is a true, like, normal crime thriller or whether it is a crime thriller with some supernatural vibes to it. And if you want something that has that Nordic noir feel but also has an occult suspense vibe to it, you should check out The Witch Hunter by Max Seeck. This one is creepy. Now, this author is not part of the Scandinavian noir or Scandinavian crime genre, but this is a crime thriller author that I always recommend to people who are just getting into crime thrillers because of their fast pace, super short chapters, very cinematic quality to them. MJ Arlidge has written for television, and you can actually feel that in his books. They feel very fast-paced. They feel like an episode of television, and his D.I. Helen Grace series is probably one of, if not my favorite crime thriller book series that is like a police procedural, but also has a very, very dynamic protagonist. I mean, you're hanging on to every word of these books, waiting to find out what happens to Helen. I mean, she is so interesting. There are no protagonists like her in fiction, not that I've found. I tried to keep this video more Scandi specific, but there are so many good crime thrillers to read, particularly book series involving police procedurals. There are so many, but this is a good starting place if you are looking for something that has that wintry Scandinavian vibe to it and you want series in particular, or if you read my books and you really like them and you want something that has that feel, these are some of the ones I would definitely recommend, and I hope you enjoy reading them.